Today we will be making Toblerone Coconut Almond Biscotti. Recipes from one of my mother's coworkers from back in the day, and it's quite delicious. To begin with, we need 1 Toblerone bar, 1/2 cup and 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil, 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 1/4 teaspoons of baking powder, 1 1/2 cup of coconut sweetened, 4 eggs, 1 1/2 cups and 2 tablespoons of sugar, 3 cups of flour, 1 1/2 cups of toasted almonds. Now to begin with, I didn't have toasted almonds, so I'm just going to do that quickly. So I have my pan on the stove, about number 6 on the heat, and we'll just kind of toss those in there. And the trick to this is you don't want to cook them too long because they taste terrible. So you just kind of let them roast for a few minutes till they get a little bit of color on them, and that's kind of the end of that. Doesn't take very long, just a couple minutes, and probably taste them every now and then just to make sure that you're kind of in the ballpark of where you want to be. But once you start getting that color on them, take them off the heat and you're done. Okay, now we'll go grab our cutting board and our Toblerone bar. So let's get that out of the package here nice and quick. Get the aluminum foil off of there. Oh yeah. It's just a standard size Toblerone, and we're going to use all of it except for one triangle at the end. So we're just going to cut it up, and the way you cut this up will really change how the recipe tastes in the end. If you leave bigger chunks in it in your biscotti, you'll have nice big chunks when you're biting into it. If you cut it really small, then it's kind of more dispersed throughout, so there's a little bit of trade-off between the two. So I actually did a combination of some chunky bits and some smaller bits, and I really find that that is kind of a way to enhance it, because then you got the best of both worlds. So we are looking for 2 cups of this, which is, like I said before, pretty much the entire bar except for like one little triangle, so you can basically just use the entire bar and all will be good. But the last little piece didn't quite make it into the container, so just keep cutting away. Doesn't take very long. Sometimes it can be a little bit tricky to cut, so I recommend using kind of a bigger knife. That way you got lots of leverage and the weight of the blade to do the cutting. Now we're just about done there. We'll move on to the next step. This recipe is really easy if you have a mixer, but I'm going to be doing it by hand. So we got our bowl here. Just going to add our flour to the bowl. Then we're going to get our sifter out and sift in our baking powder, as well as our sugar. And we don't want to forget our salt, so there we go. Now I'm just going to mix this up by hand here. If you had a stand mixer, you can throw everything in all at once and just run it with the hook, and it will eventually combine. But we're doing it old school for people that don't have equipment, so it's going to be mixing this by hand. And once I think this is kind of combined, which it pretty much is now, we're going to add some more ingredients. So we're going to start with our oil. Okay, then we're going to add our eggs. Then we'll start mixing this again. Now, this is a very, I would say, dry batter, so it's quite difficult to mix. And if you got a second person that can help hold the bowl, and then you can mix with 2 hands, that would definitely help if you don't have a mixer that you can use with it. But if you struggle enough, it'll all combine nice and perfectly. Always want to do this for a couple minutes and make sure everything's all nice and combined. We want that baking powder to be well incorporated so it'll rise properly before we add all of our fun stuff to the mix. Because this is the essential part for baking, and the other ingredients, the nuts and coconut and chocolate, they don't really matter so much. They just need to be kind of dispersed in the batter, whereas this part is the actual baking that bakes, so getting this part mixed is really important. Okay, looks like it's all mixed nice and good now. So now we can add our fun ingredients. So we'll start with our coconut, our almonds, and our Toblerone bar. Now this is where it gets really fun to mix, because now it's even thicker than before. So we got our helper here holding on to it, and we're just going to mix away. Just going to do this for a couple minutes here till we have a nice combined mixture, and then we're good to go to the next step. Okay, so now I've got 2 pans here, have them both covered with parchment paper. And what we're going to do is dump the batter out on one and then divide it in half and put it on the other one. There were some communication issues when we were first doing this. I was going by the recipe and Mother had her own ideas, so they were a little bit different. I thought we had to have 3 logs and we only needed 2. So if you see anything that looks kind of weird in this section, that's kind of why. So what we're going to do is try to spread them out into a flat shape, like a flattened cylinder, just one column, like a log. And that's kind of the process for doing this. Takes a little bit of time, and you probably want to wet your hands when you're doing this because this dough is insanely sticky. It just sticks to everything, and then you can't really do anything. So if you have your hands wetted, then it doesn't stick to your fingers so much, and you're able to have it much more pliable. As you can see, the one that Mother did looks far better than the one I did, but it is what it is. So now that the hard part's done, you can do the easy part. So we're just going to throw these in the oven and bake them at 325 degrees for 25 to 35 minutes. Then we're going to pull it out, let it cool off for about 20 minutes. Then we're going to cut it into nice little strips. Now the other way you can do this is you can cut it the other direction as well. Cut them all in half, like horizontally. Then you have much easier pieces to manage, and when you're eating them, yeah, it's probably better that way. That's what we did with our second batch. So we'll get these all on the tray here, which doesn't take very long to do. And then we'll throw everything back into the oven and start our second baking. So we're going to bake these for another 15 minutes. Then we're going to take them out, let them cool off a little bit, and rotate them all 180 degrees so that the other top side is exposed. And then we're going to throw them back into the oven for another 10 or so minutes and just really cook these things so they're nice and crispy then. And then once that's done, they're ready and you can eat them. So I recommend having it with a cup of coffee or a cup of tea and enjoy. Let me know in the comments below how you make your biscotti. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to see more of this. And until next time, stay awesome.